Hello, everyone. This is your host, Tiernan McCarthy-Kenney, and welcome back to another episode of Tiernan's Tea Time. It is currently 3:10 a.m., 4.5 hours away from when I'm supposed to wake up. We'll see about that. But I had to jump on here and talk about an amazing UFC 299 card. Fantastic prelim fights, a lot better than I thought. A lot of early finishes, but the main card is what we're all here for. That's what we want to talk about, so let's just get into it. Peter Yan and Song Yedong. Excuse me if I pronounce any of these names wrong. It's one of those weird things where you hear it, sounds good, you're like, okay, I got that, and then it's almost like you just put those words into a blender when you try to speak. So a lot of those are like that for me. I even wrote the pronunciations on my notes here. Still gonna fuck it up. I know I'm gonna fuck it up. It's 3 a.m. That's just what's gonna happen. So this was a really good fight, especially to kick off the main card. It was still up there. I feel like it's probably like the third best fight, fourth best fight, to be honest. But very tentative to start right out of the gate. Two heavy strikers, boxing backgrounds. Song's obviously the up-and-comer. Peter Yan's a former champion. He's been around for a bit. He was on a 3-fight losing streak. So he's a little bit hungry, and it showed. I mean, Song came out hot, guns a-blazing, and Peter was definitely a little laid back. Like I said, tentative, but ultimately came back, gained a lot of momentum coming out of the second half of the second round, and then just owned the third round, completely dominated at the end. But Song came out hot, like I said, 100% the aggressor, and it was weird seeing Yan in like that light, that defensive light, because usually he's the aggressor. Usually he's like the quick striker, putting tons of pressure on you. But seeing him in the defensive end was definitely a first. But again, he came back, end of the second round, third round, got the decision, ton of momentum, opened him up, was leaking. So I'm glad at least he ended his losing streak. Now he's back in contention. Great fight. I think Song especially has a really bright future. It was really fun to watch him. And he's a tough one. Like him versus Merab would be a fantastic fight. Maybe even if he can redeem himself in the next 2 fights, and if Merab eventually stole the belt from Sugar, that could be an amazing title fight. We'll see. Burns versus Delamadadlana. Madalena. Jesus Christ. Told you. I told you it was going to happen. This one was interesting. Honestly, it was kind of it wasn't a bad fight, but it was one of the worst ones, I think, out of all of the main cards. Wasn't as great storylines compared to everybody else. And it was kind of a snooze fest for for most of it. Obviously, it ended with a TKO because it couldn't have been that bad. What I did like about it, though, is it reminded me a bit of Aljo and Sugar, actually. Burns is a gifted grappler, multiple-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. And then Madalena is a gifted striker and has been striking his entire life. So with just that info, you can imagine how it went down. Burns put on a grappling clinic, took his back 3 times with so many takedowns. I don't know how he didn't finish him. That was crazy. Madalena's takedown defense, or not takedown defense because he got taken down, but his I guess grappling defense was fantastic. Somehow didn't get choked out. But then, I mean, he knocked him out. So there you go. I mean, he put on a striking clinic in that sense. He definitely pieced him up a bunch, but he ended up viciously with a jaw-breaking knee. They got out of it. Burns went back to shoot on him, and he anticipated it, hit him with a knee, just smashed his face. Burns goes down, and they just elbows the shit out of him, destroying his face, and knocked him out. And he actually laid on the ground. Like, I didn't think he was actually knocked out, but he did lay on the ground like Francis did last night. So that was something. And then actually there was a video that was posted of him crying as well. Post fight, he was very upset because I think he was up for title contention and all that stuff, and now it's kind of gone down the drain a bit. But Maddalena is on the rise here. He's now tied with Ian Gary actually for the longest active winning streak in the welterweight division with 7 wins in a row. So hats off to Maddalena. He was fun to watch. He was definitely fun to watch. I'm just saying, out of the other 4 fights, it was probably the last on my list, but it's not like it was a bad fight. It was still great, and it would have been one of the fight of the nights, I'm sure, on a regular card or a UFC fight night or something like that. Kevin Holland versus MVP. This one obviously was a big one. There's a lot of storylines here with MVP's debut. It was good. I think it was a perfect pairing, especially for a debut like that. Interesting styles, to say the least. All the theatrics with MVP. That's the only thing that, like, I got to get used to with him is the weird dancing between, even in the middle of the fight, but even on his walkout and stuff like that. Obviously, what you expect, different kind of music, all this different stuff. I mean, it was definitely a sight to see. He also had this interesting stance. I forget what Joe Rogan kept saying about. It was a specific kind of, I think it was like a point something. Hands down the entire time. And it almost seems like he was toying with him a bit. Hands completely down. Like never by his face, completely down the entire time. Just bouncing around, moving around. Super creative. He's super fast. And his ability to close distance was astounding. He could be so far. I mean, he is tall and he's lanky. So is Kevin Holland, but it would just be in a second, like less than a second. He could be pretty far away. You're not really expecting much, and then boom, he's hitting you in the face. So it was an amazing performance by him, to say the least. Kevin Holland was visibly frustrated. Wasn't really able to land many shots on him. He even said to his coach right before the second round, he said, "I hear you, but he's faster than we thought." He had a couple times where, I mean, there was one time where he kind of did his little dance towards the end, like mocking him. He was gassed, though, at that point in the third round. He almost did have a rear naked choke on him in the middle of the second, and I actually did think it was over because it looked pretty tight, but then MVP went to his back, and Holland just lost the leverage. So it was close but no cigar. It was a good debut. He definitely showcased his creativity, his theatrics, his showmanship, and his talent. He's got real talent, and he can be a guy. He can 100% be a guy in the UFC. Next, we had Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint-Aunis. Fantastic fight. Obviously, would have been up for fight of the night if it wasn't for Sugar and Cheeto's performance. Co-main event. Benoit Saint-Aunis' walkout music was literally like the Akatsuki having a meeting. I hope you guys get that Naruto reference, but seriously, it was a little, it was interesting. I mean, I liked it, but it was kind of intimidating if you're Dustin Poirier. But I don't know if he really gets intimidated by anybody. Dustin had 15 guillotines. He even had his coach telling him not to do any more guillotines, but he kept doing it throughout the entire fight. I was going to come on here and say, though, that I felt, because I thought the fight was going to go a certain way, and I think we all did. It felt like an old buck, young buck situation, and I'm not trying no disrespect to Dustin Poirier at all, because I like him a lot, and I respect him a ton as a fighter. But it definitely seemed like a bit there that he was kind of the older guy and couldn't really hang with the young buck as much. It just seemed like Benoit Saint-Aunis just had this motor, similar to like a Marab, just this constant motor and pressure. It was almost like a Strickland Adesanya fight. Constant pressure on you, whether he's punching you or trying to take you down, whatever it was. He was just on you. You didn't have any time to think. And Dustin Poirier absolutely got tired. He was exhausted. And I think he just was a little bombarded. Like, what the fuck is going on? Not really expecting that. I don't think anybody... I mean, going in, you knew he's a killer. You knew I mean, uh, his last few fights are all knockouts, all finishes. I think every fight, don't quote me, but I think it was every fight of his professional career was a finish, which is insane. So we all thought it was going one way. If it was a decision, it absolutely would have went to Benoit Saint-Aunis, no doubt. He was like a rabid dog foaming out the mouth, but he wasn't like irrational. He also had this calm, collected sniper side of him as well. It was interesting. He's a great fighter. He's really fun to watch. But like I said, nobody expected that. Dustin got him, knocked him out, uppercut, and then a fantastic right hook. TKO. End of the. I guess you can kill that narrative. Dustin's a bad man, and there was some talk that he was going to retire. Just stupid rumors. I don't think he's retiring. I still think he's going to fight. I don't think he has that much longer, but I still think he's going out with a bang. It's like, what a fucking fight. So fun to watch. Now to the main event, Sugar vs. Cheeto. Fantastic. I think this is what everybody wanted. A pure bludgeoning. Obviously, everybody wants some sort of finish, whether it's a knockout or choke, whatever it is. Submission, but excuse me for my seltzer break. It's everything we wanted, but it's also not exactly what we expected, right? So even when they came out, I think I was under the impression, I think everybody else was under the impression that Cheeto was just going to get all the love. But he didn't. It was very mixed. There was a ton of boos. There was a ton of cheering. And even some O'Malley chants in the second and fourth rounds. Super big. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Aljo fight as well. This was a little bit different. It was fuck you Aljo. But it was a roar. So you had a ton of O'Malley people. I saw people wearing they were wearing the pink afros as well. A lot of love on both ends. But I think during the press conference and then also the weigh-ins, you would have expected that it was going to be a little more one-sided. I mean, even Sugar in the Nug Boys interview also said, I think it's going to be a little more one-sided, but it was actually very mixed. The fight started out, though, with Cheeto being very patient. We all expected that. That's how he rolls. But it also lasted a little bit too long. And even his coach is like, hey, man, we got to get in here. Like, we gotta step it up a bit because you don't have much to go, right? If you're super patient and he wins these first 2-3 rounds, you have to get a knockout. And that's ultimately what happened. And, of course, he didn't get a knockout. It's way too patient. For the most part, Shug was just feigning lots of movement, continuously piecing him up though, and tons of speed. He's way quicker. It was pretty noticeable. Second round, Cheeto got a knee in the face that sounded like someone just hit a home run out of Fenway. Definitely a broken orbital or a nose. Sugar even mentioned that he thought he felt something snap. Yeah, it was violent, and there was a crazy vicious exchange right after that. Continuously right after the knee. I don't know how he didn't go down. Pretty crazy. You heard it literally sounded honestly like somebody took like a wooden baseball bat and broke it over their knee. It was insane. I don't know how someone just takes that and doesn't get stunned, or what, but didn't get dropped. Came down really to just a dominant performance by Sean O'Malley. Just all in all, he won every single round, with ease. No, I mean, yeah, no, it was with ease. He really did. I mean, it's not to say that Cheeto didn't get some shots in there, but he handily won, like, no doubt. He only had one time, I think, that he really almost seemed like he was going to get dropped a bit. I forget exactly what it was. There was a couple times he got kneed. There was a couple hooks in there, and then he had one at the end where he had a liver shot. So there were some times, obviously, he got hit. He took some shots. I mean, he was bleeding out of his nose pretty good. But Cheeto looked like a different person. His face got completely rearranged. Um, it's just insane. If you did not watch the fight, you have to go on my Twitter right now and look at the side-by-side picture. It is insane. It'll make you never want to fight ever again, or ever get into MMA, ever get into a boxing ring, anything, because he does not look like the same person that walked into the octagon at all. But again, insane durability and toughness. So many people would have folded in his position. I don't know who could take those punches, take those knees. In my opinion, though, I think he did. I think he did look a little bit timid. I think that's a unpopular opinion. For the most part, I didn't hear anybody really say that, and I was surprised. My theory is, though, I think with that massive support from the press conference and the weigh-ins, I think it got to him. I really do. To me, he didn't seem like he can totally turn it on. There were moments there where he got into a little bit more of a scrappier dogfight mode, but they were super short-lived. And even towards the end, every single time Sean came to him, he's just cowering. He's cowering, covering his face, cowering, covering his face. And the whole time in the beginning, the first 2 rounds, for the most part, he's not really doing much. He's just taking it and not really dishing it out. So, to me, it just seemed like he was a little bit nervous and not coming up to the moment as he should have. Where Sugar, on the other hand, was a lot more poised, calm, collected, and just a sniper. He was just picking out what he wanted to do. Excuse me, 3:27 a.m. He's just picking his spots. He didn't care. It was just like almost like he was in a flow state in the zone the entire fight. It was really like it was his best performance, no doubt, and it's gonna be crazy if he tops that. To be honest, I thought it was funny though too, and Joe Rogan commented on it a bit, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit because Cheeto comes up with this as well. But it's just funny when you're looking at Sugar and you notice like the tattoos, the hair, the pink Lambos, the heck, etc. And you'd expect him to be super reckless, to not train like a true professional, act like a professional, and that's just plain wrong. He's literally the complete opposite. He's a quiet, disciplined warrior, and that's kind of the things I admire about him. He meditates, he does his cold plunge, he does all this stuff. He has a farm in Montana. Like, it's just like, come on. And you wouldn't expect that from a guy who's got like a pink phoenix tattooed on his chest, with like pink cornrows and face tattoos and like, and he just seems like a cool, chill guy. And it's just so funny, like how it's really true. A book or cover doesn't, well, what is it again? What's that saying again? I forget what it is. Now I'm blanking. I just lost my train of thought with that. I apologize. But it's I'm trying to think. The cover doesn't present the book. Something like that. I'm fucking holy shit. I'm losing it. But yeah. That's kind of how he is. And I love that about him. It's really one of my favorite things about him. Because he just completely kills those stereotypes, And Cheeto does a little bit of that too. And I love Cheeto, and it was really tough. It was tough, like, leading up to this fight of, like, who do I want to win? But it was mainly just because with the fight leading up, I watched a ton of his interviews and stuff like that. And I love that dude as a person. He's just one of those dudes, like, I would love to hang out with. I would love to be his friend. Like, he just seems like a really stand-up, down-to-earth guy. And it's tough to root against that or wish for him to get his face rearranged, But that's the name of the game. That's the name of the game. They're two great guys, and I'm sure it's possible that we can see a rematch again. I don't really think we will, to be honest. But the question is, who's next? And I think it's a pretty simple question, or a simple answer, excuse me. Right. So when O'Malley was asked about this post-fight, he said to Poirier, "We kind of expected that. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen next. Um, I think it has to be Marab. And I know that's a common answer, but that's the truth. I think it has to be Marab, especially since Marab was the backup. He did his cut. He flew out there. I don't think they would have had him there if he wasn't next up anyway. And then you add in Dana's comments, post 298, all that stuff. He's probably going to be next. And it's going to be a good fight. That's going to be a fun fight. What I do think, though, is if Sugar defends his title again, and then maybe Topuria also has a title defense around the same time, then I think that could potentially be next. Then you could see Sugar possibly being have two belts. I think it's a real possibility because that would be a huge show. Imagine that, like with the Conor McGregor-like figure, but in Spain, obviously, and then the Conor McGregor-like figure in America going head-to-head. And who knows, if that's like the first Spain card, like that would probably be amazing. But also, there's the point of like, well, you wouldn't be catering to most of your fan base in America because of the time change, all that different stuff. So that would be interesting. So it might be the Spain fight would be his first title defense. We'll see. I mean, there are options. There are obviously options. Who knows? It might never ever happen. But I think it should. I think that would be a huge fight. I mean, even if he did lose against Marab, I still think he's worthy of that fight because it's just the entertainment value alone. But in talking about entertainment, let's take a turn to some boxing, which is something I'm not really into. I don't really love boxing much. I'm only tuning into this because of Francis Nganu. Obviously, everybody kind of is. And I just wanted to mention that because I watched it last night. I'm sure you saw the highlights. Holy fucking shit. Not what I expected. Not really what anybody expected, I don't think. Unless you're just a drunk boxing fan. But March 8th, this past Friday night, between gold medalist Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou. AJ, multiple-time heavyweight boxing champ and Olympic gold medalist. Obviously, we know this. And, of course, Ngannou is a former UFC heavyweight champ. So they fought on big stages before, obviously. Not the first time they got thrown Saudi money. This is a fight that's been up in the air for a few years now. Both of them have kind of commented on it over the past couple of years, really. And Ngannou's impressive debut against Fury is really what earned him AJ. And obviously he lost, but some people really thought he won. And he had a knockdown against Fury, and people thought that was worthy. Very divided debate, similar to like a Democrat-Republican, except it's boxing fans versus MMA fans on who the baddest fighters are. In my opinion, which I don't think is out there, I think it's very equal to a 2 + 2 = 4 equation here. But for boxing fans, they don't see it that way. Nonetheless, all MMA fans were put to silence. Francis Ngannou got absolutely steamrolled. Second round TKO after 2 knockdowns previously. Literally already being considered as one of the most vicious boxing knockouts of all time. It's not to this level, but it honestly reminded me of the UFC 296 when Bryce Mitchell got knocked out. Obviously, Francis didn't seize up in the in the boxing ring, but in terms of just a hard hit and like legs buckling, hitting the deck hard and being on the floor for some time, it was exactly the same. You need oxygen and everything. And it was funny because the camera then just goes back and forth from him to then Anthony Joshua's just D Rose game winner face, and then the fucking Tyson Fury just fidgeting on the sidelines, just like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to go fight this guy now. Was hilarious. It was super hilarious. It was fun to watch, and it was a sight to see. And if you didn't see the highlights, you gotta go watch the highlights right now. It was quite a knockout, and seeing two huge dudes just like pound each other like that was something else. One of the craziest knockouts in the history. We'll see if Francis stops boxing now. I don't know, but it's pretty discouraging. I know obviously he's supposed to fight PFL. Then there were some like talks of him and John Jones fighting, which would be crazy. But I think we'll see at least one more boxing match from him. And I think he'll go back to MMA, but we'll see. Especially getting money like that, he's not going to want to turn that down. But we'll see what happens. On another note, another boxing note. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. It's a little bit old news. I mean, it was released a couple days ago. And you're hearing this. You're going to hear this a couple days after I record this. Well, I guess technically one day, because it is 3:36 a.m. So, but just want to give you my 2 cents. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, July 20th. Streaming on Netflix. The Netflix thing, perfect idea. That's going to be fantastic. I don't even know Netflix would be down to do that. Who's not going to watch it now that everybody has Netflix? My one question is, where the fuck did this come from? I know they fought in a card together, 2020. Didn't think they'd end up fighting each other. If anybody, I thought he was going to go after Floyd after the whole Logan and him debacle about that. Maybe, and I think I was going to say this later on, I think this is just going to be used as leverage for one of their fights. For one of him and Logan's fights about who's the better boxer. Now he's going to say, well, I fought Mike Tyson. And you fought Floyd Mayweather, when they're both retired and older and are just doing this for the payday. Not really much to brag about, boys. He's 57 years old. He's 57 years old, and you're 27. I mean, there's a 30-year age gap. I think that's a little pretty prominent to point that out. I think that's a big deal here. There's a 30-year age gap. Okay? A little ridiculous. And then, of course, knowing Jake Paul, if he wins, which he probably will, I don't know if he's going to knock him out, but even by decision, whatever, he's going to boast about this like crazy. And there's just nothing to brag about. It's similar to when he fought Anderson Silva. It's like, yeah, fantastic fighter. Also, he was in MMA. He wasn't a boxer, which is a thing. It's like, okay, yeah, MMA fighter might not be as good of a boxer as so-and-so, because if you're a boxer, just specializing in one martial art. But if you're talking about a real fight where anything goes, who do you think's winning that? The MMA fighter. Because they know 7 other martial arts. Is that hard to understand? I don't get it. But as a boxer, yeah. They're not specialized typically in this one thing, because they do 7 other things and they have to be well-rounded so they don't get caught off guard and choked out or fucking break their leg. You know? Different priorities than boxing, okay? A little different. But yeah, Jake Paul, kind of weird. But in terms of entertainment value, selling, all that stuff, viewership, this is going to be a huge fight. Everybody's going to watch this fight. You're not going to not watch a Mike Tyson fight, especially against a fucking streamer like Jake Paul, whatever the fuck he does. You're going to watch this fight. So, smart move on that, and he typically does well in terms of that and the marketing side of things. But in terms of like cementing your boxing legacy, wherever you want to call it, this is definitely not the route to go, my friend. Get somebody good. Fight Canelo or something. I don't know. I don't know a lot of boxers. But Canelo seems like he'd be around your size and weight. Why don't you just fight him? Fight somebody like actually good. Where you can be like, okay. Not Nate Robinson, Mike Tyson, Anderson Silva. Okay. All have health issues and are older. Like, it's just bizarre. It's weird shit. Who would have ever thought that Jake Paul was going to go down this road? I don't know. But I'm here for the ride. So if you want updates, tune in. That's going to be the end of the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.